Why UConn will beat Syracuse and prove a lot of its doubters wrong. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, a quick note. This show is growing fast, and we really appreciate it. Thanks to you, the fans, and those who value quality UConn content. We're the only daily UConn podcast covering both men's and women's basketball, as well as football. And we're growing every single day. We're also the only podcast that donates to NIL by supporting Bleeding Blue for Good. And we're proud to give back to our community by donating 10% of our revenue to the Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games, football games, basketball games, men's and women's. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to subscribe and follow wherever you listen. Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Now new customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, we bring in Bobby Wilson, one half of the TNT National Podcast. Let's bring him on the show now. Bobby, thanks for joining us, man. Sorry we missed you last week. I'm glad you're on the mend. Let me ask you this question. What is the main reason why UConn will win against Syracuse this Saturday and kind of prove some of their doubters wrong? They're enjoying their best football season since 2008 with a 7-3 record, but they haven't beaten an ACC opponent. They're 0-2 this year against the ACC. Why will that change this Saturday?
I think it's motivation. I think our guys are motivated to the highest level. They're coming off a bye where they're able to really dissect things, really dive into what Syracuse does. And I love our coaching staff with the opportunity to have an extra week to look at Syracuse and look at the things that they do. They do some things very well, but they also are gettable in certain situations. And I think our staff is going to do a great job putting our guys in the best situation to succeed in those.
Okay. The biggest guy that they have to stop is Syracuse quarterback Kyle McCord. He leads one of the most explosive passing attacks in the ACC, averaging almost 350 passing yards a game, distributing the ball pretty effectively among multiple targets. How do we stop Kyle McCord? I know, probably trying to give him some pressure, maybe play some games up front with the defensive line, dropping guys back. But in most of the games with ACC opponents, they've had kind of a tougher time adjusting maybe to the physicality of the team that they're playing. And what's going to change about that? I think that's my biggest, I guess, like issue on, like, I think they're going to win the game, but if they lose, it's mostly going to be because they don't handle that adjustment right away. It takes time. How do we kind of simulate that to know that we're playing against a bigger, faster club?
Absolutely. We have to win the line of scrimmage in this game on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. I mean, we got to get pressure in Kyle McCord's face, make it difficult for him. In the games that they've lost, he's turned it over a decent amount. I mean, yes, you can look at the Pitt game where he had 5 interceptions. That's kind of an anomaly. That's not a normal thing, obviously. But in their other 2 losses, he's turned it over as well. It's not just been him, too. They fumbled the ball. They've had some other issues. Big thing with him is he leads the nation in completions, attempts. He's like top 3 in yards. I mean, he can sling it. The one thing I've noticed looking at their 3 losses, they've had less than 40 yards rushing as a team in each of those 3 games. In their wins, besides the UNLV game, they've had over 100 yards rushing, so they've been more balanced as an offense. If we're able to make them one-dimensional, in that regard, it really pushes things in our favor.
I'm going to mention one guy that I think is going to be a really big factor for Syracuse, and I think it's Arondé Gadsden. He's a matchup nightmare. If you remember that name, he's the son of a former, I believe, Miami Dolphins wide receiver of the same name. So he's a beast. you know, how do we stop him? And are we going to bracket coverage, but then you leave, you know, other receivers open like Jackson Meeks, who's a running back or top receiver for them. So I think those are going to be the two biggest issues with our secondary.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best tight ends in the country. It's we're in certain situations, we're definitely going to have to bracket him just because he can take over games in that way. He's a really, really talented player. Like LaQuint Allen, the running back, is a really good pass catcher too. I mean, this is a really, really solid offense that presents a lot of challenges. We got to be ready to go. We have to. Pete and I always talk about our operations aspect, and we have to operate very, very well, especially in our secondary. Obviously, our back end of the defense, the operations have to be, I don't want to say perfect, but they got to be pretty darn close to that.
No, we could say you could give me the Herman Boone. We have to be perfect. We can go remember the Titans and so we must be perfect. Or you know, you drop a pass, you run a mile. Honestly, man,
Yes.
this is their Super Bowl. Like we can't underscore it. Like because I know UMass is down the road. Fine, whatever. We should beat UMass and at least have 8 wins this year. But God, the impact of a win against a Syracuse. Pete said it last week when we were missing you. Is you know it's literally about beating someone in your region. That kind of it would be such an eye opener. You know what I mean? Like the idea that again, us being down in North Carolina. You know, when when we played Wake Forest, when we played Duke, people were like, "Oh, they just barely beat UConn." Like, there's a perception that needs to be changed off of this, and it also could go a long way to opening the eyes of power conference people that are looking, like Big 12 and others. They go, oh, "Okay, UConn. Not only did they win 9-10 games this year, but they actually beat a quality Syracuse team."
Absolutely. I mean, it's a big task in front of us for one, but this is the biggest opportunity that we've had in front of us all year. I personally feel because, like you said, I mean, getting this win against a Northeast opponent would be a game changer for us. It's huge for many reasons. Obviously, what it could lead to down the road, but it's huge for recruiting.
Yeah.
We can then say, hey, we are the top team in the Northeast. We beat Syracuse, so it's a huge deal. I have the privilege to vote on the Lambert Trophy, which is the best team in the Northeast. And if we win this game, it clearly puts UConn in the top 3 for that award. Which I think if you would have said that to people coming into the season, I think a lot of people, especially nationally, their heads would have exploded.
I agree with you. All right. Well, when we return, we're going to talk a little more about the X's and O's and get into a little bit about Syracuse is backcourt. They have a balanced attack. You talked about LaQuint Allen, and really kind of talk about the Syracuse defense, which is giving up quite a few yards. But we're going to talk about all that coming up after this. What's up, everybody? If you're looking to elevate your sports experience this season, meet Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy action, player projections with over 10 million members, and billions in winnings and awarded prizes. Prize Picks is the ultimate way to turn your sports knowledge into real money, real cash. What makes Prize Picks unique? You can win up to 100x your money by making just 4 correct picks. Think your favorite player will dominate. Just pick more or less on their stats. It's that easy. Prize Picks offers an injury insurance policy, so if one of your players goes down early, your lineup stays in play. And here's what I'm looking at this week on my football board. I got Justin Jefferson for more than 83.5 receiving yards, Lamar Jackson for more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. It's fast, fun. You can make your lineup in under 60 seconds. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly. After you play your first $5 bet, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for an instant $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. What's up, everybody, and Husky fans everywhere? My favorite sponsor, yes, even though I'm not allowed to say that, I say it every time. Let's gear up for the season with HomeField, the premium collegiate apparel that puts comfort and school pride front and center, whether you're cheering courtside or at the game whether you're going to Syracuse this weekend or at Rensselaer Field. HomeField's vintage-inspired UConn gear has you covered, and here's the best part. Use the promo code UConn24 at checkout to get 15% off your first purchase. Don't wait. Rep your Huskies with the comfiest and most stylish gear out there. Head to homefieldapparel.com today and show your UConn pride and style. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn with a special guest. We have Pete Callan back on the show. Bobby Wilson was with us for the first segment. Love to have you guys. All three of the triumvirate is back. We missed Bobby last week. We got a little taste of a one-on-one with me and Bobby there. He did a great job in the first segment, Pete. So you got a lot to live up to. We're talking Syracuse strengths, key players to watch here. We did a little bit of a deep dive on Kyle McCord and what that's going to look like for us to stop him. Let's talk about the running back, LaQuint Allen, in this offensive line. Where do you see us kind of balancing, trying to keep them under their? I think they average about 80 yards rushing a game. Bobby made a great point. He said in their 3 losses, they've had about 40 and 45 yards rushing, I think, a piece in those 3 losses. So what does that look like? Are we essentially stacking the box to basically say Kyle McCord go nuts? Are we going to keep doing kind of mixing it up? Like what is the defense going to do to keep that rushing attack low so that makes them one-dimensional?
We're going to have to play balanced on defense. You can't just give Kyle McCord just carte blanche to just go crazy with his arm, because he's too talented and his group of receivers are too talented to just let, run loose. So I trust Matt Brock with his scheme and what he's going to do. He's probably going to stay in base alignments, and as the cadence is going, as has been his operation over the year, have somebody prowl, creep up, fill a gap, and basically try to disrupt as much as possible any and all of their base runs in order to minimize a gain or get a tackle for a loss by sneaking somebody through the line. So that's basically how I see us playing it. We have enough talented people in the front 7 to do that. I think our matchups are going to be solid, particularly up front with Dalmine, Gordine, and Jelani Stafford and Price Yates. I think they're going to hold their own and holding their gaps and allowing the linebackers to run and fill and make things bounce outside, go horizontal, and get the rest of the defense an opportunity to pursue and make tackles for short gains or losses.
No, I appreciate that, man. I think what I'm looking for is I want them to I want this defense to they've been a stalwart. Like even in the UAB game where obviously Joey came off the bench and gave a spark to the offense and led them. A lot of key team turnovers in that game where it kind of changed the flow of the game. I want to see a turnover early. Like that's my I don't know how it's going to happen, whether it's a sack and a fumble, whether it's interception, punching a ball out on a running back, like something that changes the tide, because this Syracuse offense is going to put up points. So we're going to have to keep pace. But I do feel like if there's obviously a key factor in almost any football game, is winning the turnover battle. And I think if they get something early, I can give them momentum and we can get some points on the board and get ahead. I don't want to chase this game. We chased against Duke. We chased against Wake Forest. We need to get the lead. Bobby, do you agree with that? And how do you see us kind of in this game? Like, do you think the flow of the game will change if we have to start chasing and almost become one-dimensional? Because if we're chasing, trying to score a bunch of points, we're passing likely keeps us away from what we do best, which is run.
Oh, absolutely. We definitely need to start strong in this game. I think we really can look at this game, just look at what Stanford did against Syracuse, forcing turnovers, controlling the clock, doing a great job running the football. They made some really key throws when they had to. They got a star receiver who was tremendous in that game. They did the things that they had to do, all the little things to get that victory. And it's the exact same way for us, in my honest opinion. Yes, I absolutely agree with you. We need to force some turnovers, especially early, get out to a good start. That's really key in this game, because the output of Syracuse's offense, if we get behind, it's going to be going to be difficult to come back in that regard.
Pete, when we talked about this last week, that before the Cal game that Bobby's referencing, that Boston College really controlled the game against Syracuse by essentially just running it down their throats and doing things that we likely can do to them. Now, Kyle McCord still had almost 400 yards passing in that game. So, as far as our scheme, I'm going to take this back to the quarterback. Is there a chance that they go Nick Evers in this game? Is he injured? Is he? We haven't heard a thing. That's the thing. Bobby and I were talking pre-show. Do we know if it's Joe? Do we know if it's Nick? And how is that going to affect their attack?
I'll say in watching the BC game against Syracuse last week, the one thing that they did a lot of specifically in their run attack were a lot of pin pull gap schemes. Basically blocking down with linemen while, pulling others to, push open gaps up and fill in with a trailing lineman to create matchups on one side of the line of scrimmage, open up holes that way. The one pin and pull scheme we've been successful with a lot is with Nick Evers running quarterback sweep. So with that in mind, I can definitely see if there's really an emphasis to try to introduce more pin pull kind of schemes in the run game. I could see Nick playing and being a bigger factor. We don't do a lot of that with our backs. We don't run a lot of counters. The closest thing we do may be what we call a flash zone or split zone, where the tight end is flashing across the line of scrimmage, across the line as the other linemen are blocking zone in the opposite direction. That creates huge cutback lanes against certain fronts. That's the one thing that we could do, that I could see us doing moving forward in this game, to create more gaps, more downhill holes. But yeah, Nick could definitely be a factor if that's more of a consideration in the game plan.
All right. Well, when we return, let's wrap it all up with we're going to play a game called Who You Got, and that's essentially just we're going to talk about this quarterback situation. You just gave me a great intro to that next segment, because if that's the case, then I could see that I would be okay with it. But I want to talk through that a little more coming up after the break. What's up, college football fans? Let me tell you about a game changer, Zbiotics. I'll be honest, I was a bit skeptical at first, but recently, after a night out with friends, I decided to give Zbiotics, the pre-alcohol probiotic drink, a try, and it's incredible. It's invented by PhD scientists to help you feel better in the morning after. Here's the deal. When you drink, alcohol turns into this toxic byproduct in your gut. That's what really causes these rough mornings, not the dehydration. So Zbiotics tackles that head on with an enzyme to break it down before it even hits you. I made it my first night of drink of the night, and the next morning, no fog, no sluggishness. I was sharp and ready to go for the day. If you're ready to try it, go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. They even have a 100% money back guarantee. So if you've got nothing to lose, if you think it's kind of hokey and you try it and it doesn't work, they'll give you your money back. But trust me, it works. You'll thank me later. Oh, it's your old fans at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and an official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, we're back with the boys of the TNT College Football Podcast. Bobby Wilson to my right on your screen. Below us is Pete Callen. All right, guys, last segment of the program. First question, Bobby. You heard Pete talk about if we do a lot of pin and pull action, that could be something we do with Nick Evers as a starting quarterback. Could you see him starting over Joey if that's what they're thinking? And a side question that I want both of you to ask: do you see a scenario where Joe starts, but they have packages for Nick that are specific to what the scenario allows?
I mean, I absolutely can see a scenario where Nick starts. I mean, we've been over it throughout the whole season. We understand what's kind of going on behind that. But at the end of the day, like Coach Moore and company have said, Nick's the guy. He gives us the best chance to win in their eyes. We got to trust our coaching staff and roll with that. At the end of the day, I think Joe has done a really, really good job when called upon, when he's been needed. And I think coming into this game, in my personal opinion, I think he gives us the best chance to win. With his moxie and how he played in that last game against UAB when he came in that fourth quarter. Pete and I talked about this on our show. Just the swagger he had in that game really led us in that fourth quarter against UAB. To answer your question though about different packages, I think that's an interesting concept and idea. It's not something that we've done, but I certainly think that there's things that we can do with that because like Pete said, Nick is good at that aspect of the game when it comes to pulling and getting out in space. And I think we can really utilize that. And I would be intrigued to see that.
And Pete, before you answer that same question, what I mean by packages too is like, you know, there are options with this. Like, it doesn't mean that when he's in, he automatically is running. I think that's the thing is like, if they can scheme up some opportunities. My favorite play of the entire season was a run pass option where it looked like Nick was running a sweep and probably running the same thing that Pete was doing it. And Cam Edwards slipped out from underneath and he threw a little floater that I don't think it went for a touchdown, but it was my favorite play of the entire year that Nick has run. And I feel like we can do something like that against Syracuse because if we do have a Joey start and then Nick kind of sneaks in every once in a while, they're automatically be geared up to stop the run. So to be able to slip out a back or a tight end, these are plays that can help them get ahead. Remember, like not chase. What do you think, Pete?
Well, I want to mention first of all, for those who follow my Twitter handle, I put an example earlier this week where the Baltimore Ravens did the same exact thing against the Steelers. So imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right there. Look, for me, it's kind of a in a coach's mind, a confluence of information that's kind of suggesting that Joe should start. Your prize guy, and I'm going to label it right now, in case his mamas are watching. Nick Evers is the guy, but he's been banged up. He's been a little inconsistent. And I think for the long-term development of him, sitting out a game or two to heal up, A, and B, watch Joe operate, I don't think is going to hurt him. Number two, Joe's got the hot hand. He seems to have the confidence of the receivers on the offense to know that no matter where they go, no matter who's draped on them, maybe on the shoulder, Joe's going to place the ball in a position where they can catch it, which is what we have to do in this offense and in this game. He's going to deliver the ball on time. Number three, we scored points with him. The only drawback is with Nick keeps an extra defender off our running backs in the run game because of his run threat. He makes an 11-11 game, and that's a big factor in our offense. If we want to have the same effect, and I feel this honestly, it's time to let Joe loose on running the ball a little bit. I think they've been trying to protect him as well because of the delicacy of the quarterback position, but he's 6'4", 225, especially in a game like this. If it's as big a game as I feel it is, let him run loose a little bit. Let him run some of the same packages that, Nick did in terms of quarterback sweeps or read option. He's shown he can run speed option. He broke a big run against North Carolina State last year, so it's not like he can't do it. Just a confluence of factors for me that suggests that, maybe, this game run with Joe as a starter.
I like it. I like the aspect of kind of letting him run some of the same stuff that doesn't have to be completely different. Bobby, I'm gonna ask you both. Give me two keys for a victory. Just two, maybe one on offense, one on defense, or however you want to slice it.
Well, defensively, I think we need to hold them rushing the football. I don't want to say under 40 yards. That's quite a number, but I think that we need to force them to be one-dimensional. If we're able to do that, Kyle McCord has shown that he, as fantastic as a player as he has shown that he can make some mistakes. And then for us, it comes down to offensively, let's control the clock. Like I said, in the Stanford loss that Syracuse had, Stanford really controlled the clock and controlled the game. I think if we're able to do that, we come away with victory.
Okay. Pete, what are your keys to victory? Give me a couple.
Control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. We have to control it on offense, running the football, like Bobby said, controlling the clock, moving the chains in terms of creating, short distance situations, and having the receivers when we have to pass, make catches, move the chains, and get in scoring position and score touchdowns. Defensively, same thing. Control the line of scrimmage. Don't let them have a running game. Put it in Kyle McCord's hands. As good as he can sling it, there are going to be certain instances in the game where he will present you opportunities to get turnovers. And that's just the nature of any kind of passing offense. If we play our game, we do our job defensively, we work it as 11 as one, we can create those turnover situations, give the offense the ball back, and have a chance to win.
Okay. All right. Moment of truth. Bobby, what's your prediction? Score prediction.
24-23 Huskies come away with a big victory.
Pete?
It's the first time I'm going to go against my Huskies all year. 27-24 Syracuse.
Yeah, my cold open was why UConn is going to beat Syracuse, but I am going to go against that. I have Syracuse 31, Huskies 30. I think it's a close game, but I think Syracuse ultimately pulls it out. I think we're close to beating these ACC opponents, but I don't know, man. I have to see it first. Remember we talked about this segment? This segment should be called Happy to be Wrong. I hope I'm wrong. And I hope the score flips. I hope UConn wins 31-30, but I'm going Syracuse, unfortunately. All right, guys, listen, that's the show today. I really appreciate you both for jumping on. Of course, Bobby did all the work, but Pete came in the last couple segments and helped us out. But listen, guys, I hope Bobby's right, and I hope Pete and I are wrong. I hope the Huskies win. But guys, awesome to have you. We're obviously gonna have one more of these next week when we play UMass. But that's our show today. Another Locked On UConn for Bobby Wilson, for Pete Callen. I'm Mark Zanetto saying go Huskies, and let's go.